Disclaimer, the following TV show also has strict copyright from Viacom, so sadly, you're just gonna have to stick with pictures for this segment as well. Again, don't blame us, blame Viacom.
We're starting off with a bang, aren't we?
That's the idea.
Alright.
Hey Arnold initially started out as a little doodle that Craig Bartlett was drawing during the production of Pee-wee's Playhouse. After a while of giving it thought, Craig decided that he actually might want to make it a cartoon that would be seen all over the world, so he had to find a channel that broadcasts itself like that. The result of the hunt was Nick.
They immediately loved the idea and told Craig to get to work assembling a small team to make the show. So, after a few months of hard work, a pilot was aired, met with mostly positive reviews. So, that was the official green light to start working. Hey Arnold actually had an 8-year run from 1996 to 2004, making it one of the longest airing animated shows to ever be put to air. Most of the episodes involved Arnold getting into trouble from the urban myths his best friend would tell him. These range from the Headless Horseman to Superman knockoffs? Okay.
Arnold is a 4th grader who is constantly bullied and mistreated by the school bully Helga. And honestly, I think it was kind of coming to him. I mean, look at Arnold! I honestly think his head inspired Stewie Griffin's head. What with the football shape. But honestly, I'm probably just writing my own fanfiction at this point. He also happens to live in the fictional town of Hillwood. Yeah, Hillwood. I could swear I've heard something like that from somewhere.
Since the kid-friendly comedy was all the rage in the 90s, Hey Arnold was obviously a try to get in on that type of action. Luckily though, Craig put in one thing that a lot of animators forget to do nowadays. What was it called? Oh, that's right, effort! One thing that many people in the industry seem to neglect is that in order for your show to be in the slightest bit, well, good, you need to put in your heart and soul. Sure, you can have some filler episodes here and there, I get it, but you should at least try to keep it somewhat plot relevant.
In fact, it seems that a lot of Nick's shows themselves are now starting to slip at their terms of quality. I honestly cannot just turn on the TV and watch Nick like I used to. It horrifies me to see how low some people are sinking in order to make a quick buck. It's just horrifying.
As you could probably expect, with such a long running time, they oftentimes had to switch the voice actors from the main cast of characters. Some of these switches actually worked pretty well, like Gerald. His new voice actors all seemed to at least resemble his original voice, but one of them was not so great, which would be Arnold, the main character. Seriously, his voice towards the end of the series sounds nothing like the original. It's almost baffling at how different it is. It makes zero sense. I mean, I understand. If your voice actor goes through puberty or something like that, it's just obvious that they'd want to come up with someone new. But they should at least hold auditions or something.
You know what's weird though? Even though Hillwood sounds extremely similar to Hollywood, that's actually not what it's based on. Hillwood is actually thoroughly taken from Craig's hometown of Portland. Yeah, not LA, Oregon. Huh. You learn something new every day. In fact, many landmarks in the show actually came straight from Portland and the surrounding area.
One of the biggest long-running jokes on the entire show is the fact that Helga only bullies Arnold because of the fact that she is madly in love with him. There are some episodes completely focused on Helga trying to get Arnold to notice her and start to like her as well. One problem though, in the very last episode, nothing happens. Helga doesn't get to go out with Arnold, nothing big and important happens in their relationship, nothing! Hell, the episode was even about that entire story arc, and yet they did nothing with it. Seems like some really unused potential.
Honestly, I think that it really makes sense that this was a huge hit.
Why?
Well, it turns out that Craig Bartlett is actually the brother-in-law of Matt Groening.
Wait, you mean the creator of Simpsons and Futurama?
Yeah, so I'm guessing that Craig just might have taken a little uncredited advice from Matt.
I'll bet you're right about that.
Luckily, even after Hey Arnold was done airing, nobody in their right minds forgot about it. It continued to air in reruns on Nick, then it went on to CBS, and finally was picked up in 2011 for reruns by the Canadian Nick channel, but not in the US. Wow. That really sucks. Really? Canada gets Hey Arnold and we get f***ing Sanjay and Craig? That's totally bullcrap! That's not fair in the slightest!
Calm down, Noah.
Okay. I'm okay. What's next?
Something that's sure to get your nostalgia meter overflowing.
Aw, hell yeah.
That's right. I'm sorry. I really am. But I couldn't make a list like this without including Animaniacs. It would be a sin! This little show actually started in the late 80s and aired until the early 2000s. But that was just the original series, and while I do heavily enjoy it and respect what it did for the industry, I actually prefer the newer series that came out around 2008.
Yes, you heard him right. Animaniacs was picked up by the Hub Network in 2008 to try and capture all of the magic and humor of the original. And I would say they did a justifiable job. All the original characters are there, but just with some smoother animation. And true to the nature of the original, there aren't really any connected story arcs that go across the entire series. It's mostly just unconnected events about all the characters getting into mischief in many places.
Our four main characters are Yakko, Wacko, Dot, and Dr. Otto. All of them has their own respected personalities that overall just add to the show's entertainment value. But I think the one thing that everyone remembers about the show is the primary producer, Steven Spielberg. That's right, the man behind Jaws, E.T., and Jurassic Park went on to help in the production of this little cartoon. And honestly, I think it shows. The natural Spielberg charm that seems to work into everything he works on is definitely here, even if it's subtle.
Some of the best episodes of the show are mainly involving the Doctor and Wacko. These two, while starring in episodes with the other two members in some cases, mostly work together as sort of a dynamic duo. There are so many of these episodes, it's actually kind of ridiculous. They range from things like bingo frustration to frickin' outer space. That's kind of a big jump there if you couldn't tell. These episodes are all very humorous, though, in many ways. If Wacko's downright stupidity didn't get you, then the Doctor's reactions will have you in stitches. His German accent combined with his anger towards Wacko is just too perfect a combination.
This studio actually had worked on another semi-popular cartoon named Tiny Toons Adventures. This show, while not the focus of the topic at hand, was actually very entertaining. And if you compare them side by side, you could probably tell that it was made by the same people. The animation is very similar, the type of humor they use seems to be pretty spot on close. But the only difference with these two things is that one of them was made by Steven fucking Spielberg! Ah! Sorry about that. Moving on, they also got many of the same voice actors to work on both shows, such as Rob Paulsen, Jess Harnell, and Frank Weller.
Speaking of that, Animaniacs was actually originally going to be a Looney Tunes show that would star more grown-up versions of the Looney Tunes cast. It would be sort of a spin-off show to Tiny Toons, showing how each character ended up and what they went on to do. Instead, Spielberg decided that if he was going to slap his name on it, it had to be more original. So he went to talk to a few designers, and they eventually came up with a few drawings which would eventually go on to be the Animaniacs.
This show takes place in Warner Brothers Studios headquarters. The Animaniacs are actually always there trying to become their own cartoon, and I guess in the process they do? The story eventually became lost in the attempts at humor, which were always very successful. Now, if you weren't paying attention, let me say it again. This show's humor was hilarious. Now, if you weren't paying attention, let me say it again. This show's humor was hilarious. Now, if you weren't—
Okay, they get it!
I just wanted to make that perfectly clear.
While this show was mostly aimed towards kids, that didn't stop the writers from sneaking in little jokes that adults would catch on to. You know, just something to make them chuckle while babysitting. In fact, Wacko and Yakko's catchphrase, "Hello, nurse," was actually meant to be taken in a somewhat sexual manner. The opening operas that were in almost every episode were also supposed to pique adults' interest in the show because, I guess people were into operas in the 80s.
Yeah, of course! Don't you remember in the 80s when nobody seemed to stop talking about operas? Yeah, whatever you say.
Animaniacs also always had a good-spirited parody of other shows in almost every season. One episode even deliberately rips off Power Rangers by having everyone become costume-wearing monster fighters. This was actually pretty clever and was always a kid's favorite part of each season. Getting to see two of your most favored shows in one episode? It was an awesome feeling. Not to mention, after these types of episodes were done, little kids were laughing like David after Dentist.
So, a lot.
You know, this choice was actually pretty predictable. Yeah, I did my first ever review on the movie of this, but I think it's about time I pay my respects to where it all started. Ed, Edd and Eddy first aired on Cartoon Network in early 1999, and slowly but surely began to grow a cult phenomenon of an audience. It was meant to resemble those early, low production value cartoons of the 1940s and 1950s. However, since it was the 90s, the creativity meters were amped up to extraordinary amounts.
The show focuses around three boys named Ed, Edd, and Eddy, go figure, or Double D for short. It is mainly about these boys coming up with schemes to try and steal the money of the cul-de-sac so they could go and buy jawbreakers. It may sound a little rough on paper, but the execution of said simple plot was actually ingenious. Since the main characters are children, it allowed for the creators to create things that would be, in actuality, quite impossible to do. Because let's be honest here, I don't think you're going to convince anyone that summer isn't ever going to end.
But it seems like the creators certainly tried to make it last forever, as the first 75% of the show was spent in the summertime. But eventually, towards the end of the show's lifespan, they decided it would just make sense for the boys to go to school. So the last few episodes that were set to air were completely taken up by school. While I do enjoy this saga of episodes just like any other, it really wasn't as entertaining as the rest of the series. Although it did give me more time for the three Devil Sisters to torment the three boys. That was pretty enjoyable.
Although, as we mentioned earlier, that completely defeated the entire purpose of the show. It was mainly about trying to scheme others into giving you money for jawbreakers. However, since they were in school, that kind of made it impossible for them to accomplish the main goal at hand. So, it only makes sense that it was cancelled soon after it was made into a school comedy. Because Lord knows we already have enough of those.
One thing that I absolutely adored about this show was the fact that each character's such different character traits oftentimes got in the way of each other. Eddy is a dim-witted money stealer who always seems to have a trick up his sleeve. Double D is a smart, keen inventor who is always really the one who brings the Ed's outrageous schemes to life. But there is one main conflict with those two characters. Double D hates being the one who always takes things into action, as he is rather intelligent and is always worrying about his future, and how each little thing he does is going to bite him on the ass later.
But they always seem to work it out. But then there is Ed. He's by far the most stupid person in the entire group, but somehow is the most peaceful. I guess he just doesn't understand social norms, and as such is always trying to make sense of everything. But since he is too stupid to know how to fight, if you don't include flailing arms, a fight move, he always seems to be the one to make peace between Double D and Ed. Whenever they're ready to jump at each other's throats, Eddy is always there to help them sort through it, even if solving their problems involves sextants.
Don't ever bring that up.
Sorry.
One of the biggest running jokes of the entire series was the fact that there were these three girls named the Canker Sisters that always had a crush on the boys due to their sharing and attitudes. But I like to call them the Devil Sisters. It seems to suit them much better if you ask me. In each episode that involves the Devil Sisters, there is always some way that they trick the three Eds into hooking up with them at the end. It doesn't matter how many links they have to go to make sure it happens, they will stop at literally nothing to kiss them in any way.
Besides these characters themselves, there are also several other boys and girls living in the cul-de-sac, each with their own personality. There's Naz, the party girl, Kevin, your stereotypical bully, Jimmy, a weak, asthmatic mess, Sarah, Ed's ill-tempered sister, and Johnny, who spends all of his time talking to his plank. Named Plank. He should win an award for naming that! And finally, there's Rolf, who is an immigrant who spends all of his time working on a farm and playing with animals. But you have to wonder, how would such a differing set of people end up living in the same cul-de-sac?
Well, John, as it turns out, there is a creepypasta written just on that topic.
What? Really?
Yes. Care for me to share it with you?
Sure, I guess.
The tale goes that each boy and girl all lived on this one stretch of land at different points in time. But in each person's lifetime, they had their own life problems. And so slowly but surely, each person succumbed to the problems they had, slowly perishing one by one, all being trapped in this one cul-de-sac, which is actually purgatory. As time went on, each person started to die in more horrific ways, until finally every single kid was there, doomed to be trapped as a small child forever in purgatory. As for the Canker sisters, well, they're the devil's keepers. They're to make sure that no one ever escapes at all, never to be seen again. This explains why we only see very little of each person's parent and never really have any established families to go on.
Noah?
Yes?
That was f***ing terrifying!
Oh, I know.
So, what do we do from here?
I don't exactly know.
You want to just go to the next entry?
Yeah, that sounds like a good plan.
Disclaimer. For confusion's sake, Noah will be using Naruto as his avatar in this segment. With that said, you can probably tell what we're about to talk about.
Hey, John.
Yes, Noah?
You know how you fanboyed earlier about MLP?
I think I know where you're going with this. Alright, Noah, you can.
Thanks. I love this show so freaking much. I mean, it's way better than the other one that came out. It finally restored the good name of Sonic the Hedgehog that other forms of media seemed to not be doing it at that point. Frankly, if this show had never come out, I don't think we ever could have seen an actually good Sonic the Hedgehog show ever come into the light of day.
You done?
Yeah.
Good. Now, no more fanboy attacks for the rest of this. Got it?
Seems fair to me.
Okay. Sonic Saturday AM was originally named Sega's Sonic the Hedgehog, but since that name had already been used to make a show about to represent the time of day on which it came out on.
But honestly, I have a big problem with this name, Sonic Saturday AM. Doesn't really roll off the tongue, does it? What, was the marketing guy just out of work that day? I mean, you gotta be kidding me. That's one of the hardest names to say that could have been thought of. I mean, I could come up with a better name on the spot. Like, how about, I don't know, Sonic, the Race Against Time. Yeah, that sounds good. I mean, sure, it would probably need to be changed to something that would relate to the show a little better, but at least that's catchier.
But enough about titles. This show was the shit. Instead of trying to be completely kid-friendly and not entertaining at all, the creators of the show actually put in the slightest bit of effort. I mean, I was scared of Eggman. Anyone who can make me intimidated by a man literally named Eggman should probably get an award. It was also much darker than your average kids' TV show, being set in a dystopian future where everything has been taken over, and it's up to Sonic to save the day. But that's what's so great about this show. Sonic isn't trying to stop something from happening. No, it's already happened. He's trying to stop it from going any further. That is a very clever setup.
The show's backstory explains that Eggman had once been leader of the Metropolis War Ministry, and that his creation and use of swap bots led the country's victory in the Great War. In the war's aftermath, he was to be appointed Minister of Science by the King of Mobius, Maximilian Acorn, who had decided to close the War Ministry and dismantle the swap bots following the war. However, Eggman overthrew the kingdom and declared himself to be the new king. King Maximilian is never seen or heard from again.
Robotnik then captures...
No, wait a minute.
What?
What was that?
What?
You called him Robotnik.
Yeah, that's his name, isn't it?
Yeah, but you don't have to be such a dick about it. What?
I did that on purpose.
You're kidding, right?
Nope. You're a Russian guy.
I hate you sometimes, John.
I know.
Robotnik then captures several citizens who are important to the city. One of them is a wise old hedgehog named, quite frankly, Sir Charles Hedgehog, and his destructive machine, the Roboticizer. Robotnik sees the potential in the machine and orders Charles to capture animals and put them through the Roboticizer in order to make him an evil army so that he could take over the entire world.
Of course!
Go home, Bison!
God, I hate that guy.
So do I.
Some citizens like Sonic and Sally manage to escape and start to build an army of their own with the goal of stopping Robotnik in their minds. What was actually interesting about this though was the fact that Tails was not yet born. But when he is eventually born later down the line, they spend some of the episodes focused on training Tails. This made for an entertaining watch if I'm to be honest.
This time around though, Sonic is voiced by... Joel White.
Noah, I know this looks bad, but you need to calm down.
Calm down? Are you kidding? His voice practically ruined the first series because it was so silly. It was awful.
I know, but if you...
No, there's nothing to do. It's just plain...
Noah!
What?
Shut the hell up and let me talk.
Fine.
Okay, while it is true that Jaleel practically destroyed any chance of anyone taking him seriously in the original TV series about Sonic, he actually does a respectable job here. Okay, it's not the Sonic voice of the decade or anything like that, but it's actually believable. For once, you actually feel that Jaleel actually gives a single shit with the way his performance turns out, and if people are going to like it.
Wait, really?
Yeah, here, look. Listen to the original.
Don't you realize a terrible villain is about to destroy this entire place?
Nope. Don't say no, never mind the current events.
Maybe you should consider a career in politics.
And now listen to him now.
Uncle Chuck, what's up? Uncle Chuck? Oh, man. We've got to get you back to Knothole. Warp 7. Uncle Chuck? No way am I leaving you here.
Wow, he does care.
Well, he cares here at least. Looks like he didn't always want to be remembered as Urkel. At least we know he's trying to be taken more seriously in other roles. That's good to know.
Yeah, maybe he isn't so bad.
There may be hope for his career yet.
All you have to do is lower your head and tell us what's in front of you.
Or maybe you spoke too soon.
Could it honestly have been anything else?
No, I don't think it could have.
Honestly, this little show about Aang, the last airbender of his kind, is so heartfelt, so entertaining, and so downright funny that it wasn't even a competition for it to be at #1. It's just so creative.
And that's a thing I think many shows are missing nowadays. Creativity. Sure, shows will have imaginative setups, but they won't really use them in their fullest potential. Avatar is different. They use every single thing that they could have and make sure that every episode stays in your mind after it's done.
The events that take place 100 years before the series are revealed very slowly but surely over the entire series. More than a century before the beginning of the series, the ruler of the Fire Nation, Fire Lord Sozin, planned a world war to expand his territory and bring the world the Fire Nation prosperity. Despite their friendship, Avatar Roku prevented him from carrying out his plan in order to maintain the balance of the world. However, Sozin worked out his time and resumed his campaign once Roku died.
With Roku no longer a problem, the Avatar is then reincarnated as an airbender named Aang, who learned of his Avatar status while still 12 years old when his power is needed to stop Sozin. Aang, very afraid of his new responsibilities and of separation from his mentor Monk Gyatso, fled his home on his flying bison Appa. The two were forced into the ocean by a storm with Aang's Avatar stay, encasing them both in an iceberg where they remained frozen. Soon after, Sozin carried out mass murder of the air nomads during the moment of a comet that would increase the firebender's abilities. However, as Aang evaded his grasps, Sozin spent his remaining days searching for the ever-important last airbender.
In time, as the Fire Nation's 100-year war continued, Sozin was succeeded as Fire Lord by his son Azulon, who in turn passed the title to his youngest son, Oze, the current ruling Fire Lord at the time of the series. The title was originally meant for Oze's older brother, Iroh, but his birthright was taken in light of him ending his 600-day siege on the Earth Kingdom, capital of Ba Sing Se, upon the death of his only son. As you could probably tell, he wasn't too happy. So even the backstory is a fucking mouthful, but that isn't really where the series shines. The first book, as they call them, start out with brother and sister Katara and Sokka, who find the iceberg while sailing around. They're Eskimos, don't question it.
As you might guess, this is the same iceberg that contained Aang and Appa, so they free them on instinct and take him back to their village. Eventually, Zuko is attracted to Aang's power and is hoping he could use it in the war that has taken place. So after Aang learns of the war that has been going on, he reluctantly agrees to go with him, but he soon smells trouble and decides to escape the Fire Lord's grasp by using some of his airbending abilities and flying away on Appa. After a while of traveling on the way to get Katara trained, they run into a few things, including Momo, who just might be the most adorable yet deadly thing in the entire series.
The worst thing that Aang encounters in this small trip is the genocide of his people. As you can probably tell, he goes totally apeshit. he starts destroying things in the surrounding areas, leading Katara and Sokka to stop him from attacking any longer. This leads to one of the most heartfelt scenes in the entire series, where Aang breaks down and accepts the death of his entire people. It made me cry the first time, no lie. He then realizes that he must learn all the elements of bending in order to stop Zuko and the Fire Nation. But after a while, Aang realizes that his quest is more complicated than that. He wants more than vengeance. He wants peace.
After a while, Zuko and Aang actually form somewhat of an acquaintanceship, and they fall together to stop the Fire Lord from doing any more damage. The remainder of the series after that is simply about Aang going around places getting trained, but the humorous ways he does it in have me in stitches every time. I'm not joking when I say that this series' humor is some of the damn funniest exchanges I've ever heard of in my entire life. Mostly involving exchanges between Katara and Sokka. Gotta love sibling rivalries.
The final episode is probably the most serious episode of the entire series. There are almost no jokes in it. After everything, Aang has managed to learn every single element, so he considers himself ready to face the Fire Lord, or Phoenix King. But everyone else is also making themselves useful by fighting off his nearly endless amounts of soldiers. But the most heartfelt fight is going on between the two masters. Aang, who just wants it all to end, and Ozai, who is power hungry as hell. So they fight for hours. Seriously, this is a 4-part episode. It's going to last a while. But after all of it, Aang remains victorious. But then he does the most heartwarming thing in the entire series.
Instead of killing Ozai, which trust me, he has the chance, Aang simply absorbs all of his power, making him useless. Aang is now the most powerful being in the entire show. He is highly respected and admired, and the ending of the show comes as something Aang wanted out of all of this. Peace. And that's one thing that makes me happy about the ending. Aang has gotten exactly what he wanted after all of this work, and it's so deserved.
I agree completely, Noah. I do.
I love this show. I always will, no matter what anyone says.
I think you're absolutely right.
This has been the Hedgehog Ninja.
And this has been the Black Butler.
And as long as Avatar has nothing to do with M. Night Shyamalan, it will always be awesome.